The hearing at 7:04. What am I doing now? All right.
Something needs to be muted. Either the microphone or the laptop.
How about now?
Shut off your phone.
I had that off, and it was still doing it.
Then turn your volume down on your laptop.
It's all the way down. I'm gonna have to call Rich again.
Is the laptop mic muted?
My laptop is off.
It might not be making noise, but it's hearing the album.
Hello? I apologize for this. My audio on my laptop is off, and this thing is echoing. Nobody else in the room. Nobody. Yes. I did, and I just undid it from the owl. Echo canceling speaker meeting. How do I try?
Maybe you can mute it here on this device.
Travis. Can you help?
That might have been.
I think we're okay. We moved it away from my laptop. Okay. It's gonna drive me crazy. I think that we're good. Okay. Thanks, Rich. All right. High-tech stuff isn't for me. Okay, here we go. We are here. Sorry about that, everyone. Terry, are you here? Let me go to my Zoom. This is Zoom.
Do the participants have the ability to unmute themselves?
They do. And usually there's a screen.
Usually we see them, right?
Yeah, well, maybe.
If you go to participants, do you have to let them in?
I did let them in earlier, but they may have. Oh, where's participants?
Right next to the heart.
Okay.
Oh, there they are.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
I didn't mean to set it up like this. Hi, everyone. I'm sorry about that. We had some echo and weird feedback, and I think that we're okay now. I'm going to share my screen. We have, we had some back and forth. We received plans, updated plans from Beals and Thomas. And Terry Reynolds Engineering reviewed and had comments. And then this is where we're at this point. The project is substantially in good shape with a couple of outstanding concerns. Beals and Thomas, who do we have? And would you like to talk about the updates that were made?
Yes. Good evening, commissioners. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes, we are in good shape now.
Terrific. For the record, my name is Eric Lass from Beals and Thomas, professional engineer for this project representing the applicant this evening. I do apologize for not being able to attend in person tonight due to another obligation I had. Nick Santangelo, who had attended the last hearing on behalf of the applicant from Beals and Thomas, also was unable to attend in person this evening as well. But I am, pleased to start off the meeting by noting the progress that we've made with Mr. Reynolds and the commission. And I believe we've addressed, certainly more than half of the peer review comments, thus far. So appreciate your continued patience as we work through this process. And as you've noted, there are a few items still remaining to talk through, and that is what we were hoping to accomplish this evening verbally, is to talk through the remaining comments that we do have for Mr. Reynolds' most recent letter. Hopefully get on the same page about our responses, and our intention is to submit our formal responses to the most recent letter, as well as supplemental documentation to the commission and to Mr. Reynolds later this week following tonight's hearing. Also, just want to acknowledge the commission taking your own personal time out to have this special meeting after we were unable to meet to talk about the project last week. So we do appreciate that very much. Is the commission amenable to me reading Mr. Reynolds' remaining comments and talking through our proposed responses?
Yeah, sure. Why don't we start with, I have, I can just, that is not it. This is it. I color code everything to help me out.
Very good.
Because that's what we do. That's what we learn at MACC conferences, right? I even do it on my documents.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, so we'll focus on the yellow comments. So we have general design analysis comment 1 still pending. And Mr. Reynolds indicates that while the subject parcel boundaries have been revised, no subcatchment boundaries or routing is shown for the proposed solar project discharging to the Cronin Road site. So we will be submitting updated subcatchment boundaries that do depict the area draining from the offsite portion of the separate solar project, the portion that would potentially direct water towards the town of Warren. That is going to be depicted on the next subcatchment drawings that we have, and we will submit those to Mr. Reynolds for review in accordance with this comment. We'll have the pre-development and post-development conditions watershed maps. So there's figure 1 and figure 2 that will be resubmitted to address this comment.
So I stated this in my email to you. I mean, ultimately, how do I say this? Our concern about, we could have a football stadium up there, we could have a solar project, we could have a farm. It doesn't make a difference what is up gradient, but ultimately we want to get as accurate a depiction of what is coming down onto our project, just to make sure that, you know, the current stormwater basin is sized appropriately, and ultimately, water doesn't end up on our street, you know, for our highway department to, you know, manage, and that it's, you know, it's manageable in terms of, you know, it's not going to be rapidly going down the road and creating erosion, and then therefore ending up in the wetlands. So, I mean, I don't care how your project was designed up there, really, truly. That's not what our concern is. Our concern is just looking at how the water is going to change and impact our project. That's it. That is it.
No, we do understand that, and we just want to make sure we've spent, and the commission has spent a lot of time, you know, working through the comments that we already have, and that solar project has been reviewed and independently reviewed and approved. It's in a separate municipality altogether. And, you know, between now and the next meeting, you know, we do ask that if you just review yourself and Mr. Reynolds, just review in the Wetlands Protection Act at the bottom of page 12, section 10.02, the commentary there. It pertains to the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction under the Wetlands Protection Act. So I think it's helpful to have that as part of the administrative record in this instance, because the department has determined that there are limits to, you know, how far the commission can go down that avenue that you're referring to. So the applicant is amenable to sharing the information. We do want to demonstrate that we have a stormwater management system for the solar project. We spent a lot of time developing that design, and we're confident in the design that we have proposed, that it's going to provide pretreatment and infiltration and mitigation of stormwater rates coming off of the solar project that would be directed into Warren, and that those rates of runoff are not going to exceed the pre-development conditions. So we're happy to convey that, but we just don't want to initiate a whole new review of another project that's in a different municipality. That's our applicants.
That is not our intent.
Concern.
That is
Okay.
absolutely not what our intent is. Our intent is just so you can demonstrate to us. That's exactly what we were looking for. We need to be sure that we're all on the same page, and that small basin is going to accommodate what's coming onto the site. That's it.
Okay.
That's
yeah,
it.
we're confident that we can demonstrate that to the commission and hopefully address your concerns about that.
Fantastic. All right, so I'm going to skip number 2 because it's addressed. Number 3 is the proposed improvements for the upland solar area should be shown, including the proposed surfaces, grading, access roads, and any stormwater improvements. It's stormwater.
This one, you know, I think we just the previous comment, I think, you know, I guess it could have been interpreted more than one way. The way we interpreted it wasn't the way that Mr. Reynolds had intended us to interpret it. So what we are going to do, basically what this is, it's just that we're going to show the offsite area to the east of the project up gradient in its current state without solar, since there is no solar up there. And then we will show in the proposed conditions that there would be solar there. So that is the change that we'll make, and we will provide the revised hydrology calculations in our submission later this week.
Okay, so this is really a different side of the same coin. 4 and 5 have been addressed. And number 6, Terry, if you are here, can you, the stormwater management report, this was intended to mean a revised stormwater management report. Can you clarify what you were looking for?
This is just,
As things are changed, the calculations are changing, the results are changing. The overall report, the document that you're going to put into your file, should be updated in entirety. And that way, when people come back and refer to it, you're referring to what was finalized, not iterations.
Ah, right, okay, yes.
That was our intention, Commissioners,
okay.
to submit that.
I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Stormwater standards, number 1 is green is go. That means it was met. Number 2, consideration should be made for the gravel road material to minimize erosion potential. I'm not gonna read the whole thing. Ultimately, they're looking for, I understand that you have requirements from National Grid about the road material.
Yes. The detail has been updated, Commissioners, to exactly match the spec from National Grid. I think there was one aspect of it that didn't match, and that has been updated.
Well, I didn't mean to do this. I had it sitting exactly on the spot right here for the road, and I think that I'm not sure if I agree with that. How do I get out of, I need to be able to move this over. Oh, here we go. Okay. So, my concern on this is that this drawing is fantastic because it shows the 6 and 6, right? From my experience, when people are on site and they're looking at a project, they're gonna go with a picture before they go with the words. It's just easier. But Mass DOT M1030 Type A and Type B refer to borough and not to, oh gosh. What is?
crushed stone.
Crushed stone, right, or crushed limestone.
Crushed limestone specifically.
Specifically. So this here, if you can see my mouse moving on those two things, if I, and I wasn't really entirely sure, so I ended up calling some people I know at Palmer Paving in the purchasing department they put together the specs for road, and I asked them, what is, when you have M1030 Type A, what does that mean to you? And they were like, oh, that's borough, 6 inches and 3 inches. So if that's not, borough is rounded stone and it's not crushed stone. So I'm wondering if you could be more specific in this visual about it being crushed stone and not borough. And if you meant something else with that, as in, it shouldn't have extra material in it, like it should be silt and clay free of loam, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, Madam Chair. Eric, is this the most recent iteration of the plans that Nick has been working on?
No, so as of today, right, our detail is different in response to the comments. So we have it depicted there as, so the 6-inch MassDOT references are gone, and it says now 12-inch minimum crushed limestone specifically, with no other specification there. And
because Mass DOT has 12-inch depth of crushed limestone, and then the top 6 inches would have a 2-inch run of crusher. So they're very specific about that. It was interesting is the people from Palmer Paving is who I spoke with. They were like, where are you gonna get limestone? I'm like, I don't know. They're like, it's pretty hard to come by. But they also said that dense graded crusher stone was as close as you could get around here, and that would be better language than the M1030 type A and B, because that's burrow, which is rounded stone.
Yeah, it appears
You
you
have a typo, because in your text you have 2 and 3 inch stone, and in the spec you have 6 and 3 inch stone.
Anyway, this doesn't seem to match the requirements for, it's gonna go back over here for National Grid.
I think
Yeah.
the bottom
Bottom line is angular stone would be better than a burrow.
Yeah, no, thanks, Mr. Reynolds. Appreciate that. I'm gonna defer to Eric on whether we can accommodate the type of stone, but we really are trying to adhere to National Grid's standards, rules, and requirements for access roads.
Yeah, I think,
Well,
yeah.
yeah. I was gonna say that generally, I wouldn't even be looking at this, Corey, but it was such a hot button for you last time about following National Grid standards for the access road. It was a big hot button to the point where there were like almost threatening words about it. So at this point, I am looking at this closely because it's important to you, and if it doesn't match National Grid standard, I'm wondering why.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily like a small oversight. I think that what Nick had included previously, what it did adhere to what they were requesting us to include. But I'll defer to Eric on what we will include moving forward, because that's like I said, that's what we're trying to match and deliver for.
Well, I'm just gonna belabor this a little bit more. This is the iteration before. And it is 12-inch gravel base, which is gravel burrow. Gravel burrow is not what National Grid is asking for. So that's,
At that time, I don't think we had their specification at this particular, because this, like I think you said, is two iterations ago. I have in front of my screen, I have what we currently have drafted, but I will ultimately make sure. Our plan going into this next submission is just to make sure that this detail, regardless of what Beals and Thomas has previously used for these types of roads, is going to match the N-Grid standard as close as we can seemingly get it. But with your input as well, right? We're happy to try to nail this as best as everybody wants. We just want to get it right this next time, ultimately here. So it was such an important point, an emphasized exclamation mark point that National Grid's requirements needed to be followed. And the details just didn't support that. And burrow is very different than crushed stone. And so that's it. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm just going to move on. And this is like all of my notes about National Grid. The 8%, you have at 10%, but I understand that you have a waiver. Water bars. Oh, yeah, so the road, I'm just going to go back to the plan. So the plan has changed in a couple of ways, where you have, now we have a riprap swale, which is great, and the road still has water bars, or not water bars, it's the telephone poles. So, yeah, so, you know, this is a very fluid, commissioners, I do, acknowledge that what you're referring to there, is now superseded. The swale has been adjusted. Mr. Reynolds and yourselves will have this to review this week. Um, I could certainly share my screen, to show where we're currently at. It's more representative of, I think, the direction we're trying to get to resolve the comment. I will just say while we're doing that, and if I would have permission to share,
Yeah, I just gave you permission.
I have taken, and I'm not saying this to boast. I'm saying this to just tell the commission that I've taken almost 50 solar projects in Massachusetts to construction, and we have seen what works and what doesn't work. And I do just want to acknowledge, even though we've removed the water bars, they are a very good BMP to have available during construction if needed. We have adjusted the cross slope of the road. I do acknowledge that this is gravel, that it needs to be paved. I understand all of that. However, they are a very effective tool of getting water to go off of the road and not sheet flow down it, scouring it, and get it into the swale. So we have removed it, but I personally don't think it's necessarily in the project's best interest. I will just say that. So,
So can you talk, well, I'm open, we're totally open to, this type of thing. Our significant concern was that, any water bars would be destroyed the first time, a plow goes up the road.
So they're primarily, if they're properly installed using the telephone version, which we have done successfully on a number of projects. And there's two things, you know, while this project has tried to include as many construction period BMPs as possible, there still is going to be a stormwater pollution prevention plan under the NIPDES program that is submitted to the commission for review prior to construction. So there will be BMPs in there as well, that the contractor will have at their disposal if needed to comply with the SWIP and the NIPDES program. So again, to seemingly get off of this comment, we need to resolve the comment, and the comment is that water bars are not appropriate. We've removed them, but we're planning to have them still available as a BMP in the SWIP. So that way, if they are needed in the future, for construction period at least, they could be implemented. But
So it was undermining that these were post-construction measures, not construction measures. So,
sure. I think once the road is constructed and stabilized and is only being used for the very, you know, infrequent use by the utility company, you know, they wouldn't necessarily need to remain long-term if it was a concern. But again, if they're properly constructed, most of the pole, in this case, there's a lot of types of water bars. The gravel ones just get flattened out. They're not very effective. We've seen that.
yeah,
Pole versions, they're mostly embedded, and they're any part that would be exposed, the reveal is on the up gradient side. So if the road is being plowed up gradient, which it would be coming off of Cronin Road, it would be nearly flush where the plow would be passing over, and it wouldn't be ripping these things out of the ground. So that's why I think that they would be effective and would actually help protect the wetlands. That's my personal opinion on the matter. So we just have been going around and around on this comment with Mr. Reynolds, and so to just move this along, we've removed them from the plan as it stands right now. So
ultimately, I think the commission, more than Mr. Reynolds, and he was supporting us, you know, during our last conversation at the meeting, we did have, we were looking at these as long-term because we didn't realize that was construction sequence. They were presented as the finished, you know, the final post-construction. So the exterior water bars made out of crushed stone those would immediately get destroyed during winter with snow plowing. And then rebuilding them just seems impractical. And when anything becomes impractical, they ultimately, people stop doing them. And that was our concern. The telephone pole idea was discussed as a really good option, as an alternative to that, because they're embedded, they're less likely to be problematic with snow plows, but they will loosen up over time. And then perhaps cause erosion down, some of the loose soils and material will end up in the wetlands and or the basin. But significantly better than the exterior, than the water bars out of gravel. So if you really feel strongly about this, Eric, I would be amenable to that. You have also, it looks like, given the option for the road to be pitched between 2 and 5%. I think so. Who chooses the pitch? Is that a decision made in the field?
No, we've designated that cross pitch with our proposed grading, as you would see here, and we've provided a scour analysis that I believe Mr. Reynolds has accepted to show that the proposed velocities will not scour the roadway as it's currently designed now.
And just ask you this: as it's currently designed now, what's the side pitch?
We are at, just bear with me 1 second, apologies. The intent was to have Mr. Santangelo on this meeting virtually with me. Well, actually, he was going to be there in person. Our current cross pitch is just give me 1 second, please. I believe we're at, say, 5%. The intent was to get greater cross pitch that we had previously proposed in order to sheet the water off of the road, thereby not necessarily necessitating the need for the water bars. So that was really what we tried to do. I think we're at 5% currently.
Yeah, if you had it listed on your detail.
Okay. We have 5% up. Just see here, pull this up.
There is.
This is the updated. This is why I was
Go back up.
trying to share my screen.
Yeah.
Just to show the current iteration of this particular detail, which again we will revisit this week to make sure that it hopefully complies with all the input we've received. We have 5% here, and it's also 5% the way it's graded on the site plan I just had up as well.
Okay, I guess my question to you: 5%. Are you more comfortable leaving the bars in, and is it necessary?
In my experience, I think it makes sense to leave the bars in at least until the construction period is over, and at that point, they could be removed. But then there's a matter of stabilizing the area where they were taken out of.
I'm not against leaving them in. I think with the pitch and the
Together, it seems like it's a good solution.
Okay.
With them being buried, they might loosen up over time, but maybe that can be included in like a operations and maintenance plan to check those and make sure that there's no erosion behind them.
Right. Did you get that, Eric?
Yes, that is a great suggestion, and that's one that I would certainly support as the PE on this project.
Okay, great. So we will just make sure it's added to the O&M. We'll leave the bars there and the pitch. And, okay, and then, that would, there's sort of like double duty with, getting the water off the road, which is really our goal, as frequently as possible, so there's more opportunity for recharge.
Correct. Great. Thank you for discussing that and being open to keeping those in.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so I'm back to the color-coded document. I just had a question on number 4. The proposed stormwater basin includes no pretreatment and will be prone to accumulated significant sediment should upgradient erosion occur. As a result, untreated water and sediment will be deposited into the buffer zone below the basin. You guys performed a scour analysis, and my question was that done on burrow or crushed limestone?
So, okay, a couple of things on this. So the scour analysis,
Or is the material not even considered when doing that?
it is considered. There's a chart, and we're basically picking a soil texture that the choices are they go from clay, fine gravel, graded loam that has an allowable velocity of 5 feet per second to cobbles, which are certainly larger than anything that we would have in this road, being an allowable velocity of 5.5 seconds. So our iteration between there was to try to approximate the soil texture that we would have for the road for that spec. So it's something between a fine gravel and a cobble, which would, so just to give you a sense of the textures that we're dealing with, right? So it goes from 5 to 5.5. So it's half of a foot per second on the velocity end between those, that significant change between the two. So we were at a 5.1 feet per second average velocity, and we had assumed an allowable velocity of 5.25. So we split the difference between a fine gravel and a cobble to be the gravel that would be proposed for the road. So we were under that.
I mean, ultimately, what we were looking for is, because of the steep grade, we just want to make sure that the road doesn't end up at the bottom. The material doesn't end. We've seen that in a few places where the material ends up eroding in some spots because it's just the rilling is whatever sweet spot that's there. And there's a continual reapplication of material and washing out, and that ultimately ends up in the wetland. And
Yes.
And and obviously you guys don't want that because the road will have to be rebuilt.
Correct. And in response to this comment, specifically, really leads us to probably the most significant change from the version of the plans that we had recently submitted to this current version that we're planning to submit this week, is the addition of a sediment forebay to Basin 1. This is not something we had included previously. The swale had entered here on the upgradient side of Basin 1, the eastern side, and now it wraps around. Has a couple of benefits. Not only does it have the sediment forebay that would provide pretreatment for flows coming into Basin 1, it actually also, given now that it's wrapping around the southern side of Basin 1, it's actually going to pick up even more runoff from the gravel road as well. So twofold benefit there. So that really is one of the more substantive changes we've made to the, or we're planning to make to the plans that the commission will see next. And we hope that that will help to address the comments regarding standard 4 that Mr. Reynolds had raised.
Good. Okay, thank you. I'm just
Down to standard 2, peak rate attenuation. I think that this is going to be addressed.
Yes, we are going to provide that documentation.
right.
Again, just so the commission can see that we have appropriately designed the offsite BMP.
Okay, thank you.
PINK stands for, why technically the standard is not applicable because no impervious surface is proposed, the applicant should consider the potential dewatering impact of no recharge, which you seem to be doing multiple ways with the water bars, getting the water off. There seems to be some back and forth between you and Mr. Reynolds. Do you want to address this for clarification?
Yeah, so what we're talking with this, so just to be clear, we're on standard 3, comment 1. And this is the eastern basin that's associated with this proposed solar project offsite, upgrading of this part of this road here. And we've designed that offsite basin to be an infiltration basin. But we recognize that we have not yet performed test pits up there. So one of the suggestions that I wanted to present to the commission this evening to try to help address this and any concerns that there might be. I think having that basin be an infiltration basin would be beneficial as well in meeting standards 1 and 4. In that basin is going to provide pretreatment. So infiltration basins do provide pretreatment, whereas standard detention basins without 4 bays don't. So there is a benefit there. It also is going to provide recharge that could potentially benefit, these down gradient wetlands here in Warren. So what we're proposing is, if the commission were to consider approving the project, having a standard condition that the applicant demonstrate prior to construction that test pits have been performed for that eastern basin, and that it is, intended to still remain an infiltration basin as it's designed. I think that is fair. It's similar to other types of standard conditions, special conditions that we've come up with on other projects, and hopefully provides a reasonable level of comfort to the commission that that BMP will be ultimately designed as it's intended, and then help address standard 1 and standard 4 as it might relate to stormwater that comes onto this parcel in Warren.
So I have
What happens if, first, this area is glacial till, this whole area, the town of Warren, you almost can't get away from it. Perched high water, you're not gonna find 2 feet of separation. Rarely do you find 2 feet of separation, which you would need for an infiltration basin. Never mind the proper soils. You might. This isn't, but what happens if you are unable to make this an infiltration basin and you need to, change the terms of the basin, which is totally fine, but how does that impact this project?
If we couldn't satisfy the special condition prior to construction, we'd have to come back before the commission, I would say. That's where I feel like you continue to have, input on that, ultimately. So, the footprint of that basin could have to expand if the soils are of a slower, infiltrative capacity. The elevation of the bottom of the basin could need to change slightly to maintain the offset to groundwater, things of that nature that we've seen before.
Are you suggesting that if you are unable to meet that infiltration requirement, you would come back before construction? So you'd like the approval, if I'm understanding it, without doing the test pits and with the proof after the approval and to come back with a special condition if they don't meet that criteria?
That is what I'm proposing, to try to provide the commission with a mechanism to, to help ensure that BMP is going to perform appropriately. And if not, then we'll have to come up with a different way to demonstrate that we can meet standards 1 and standard 4, which I think is possible, but it would be a slightly different design. So in terms of in terms of peak rate, standard 2 peak rates, I mean, we've looked at it even as a detention basin. It's going to meet the peak rate runoff requirements, but in terms of the concerns about standards 1 and 4, I do think that there's other options up there. It's just right now, as it's currently designed and as it's currently approved, it was reviewed and approved as an infiltration basin. So that's what we're planning to do, but we have to do test pits prior to construction. So
I would also just highlight for the commission, this is a driveway. It's a driveway. That's all it will operate as. That's how it will be owned and used moving forward. It's a driveway. So I just want to keep this in mind.
It's a gravel driveway, very steep slope. That's it.
It's also nothing more than what you have already permitted for the neighbors for their personal use for their homes. Okay, so I'm just trying to put this out there to keep everybody's scope in mind that this is a driveway.
It's an access road.
No, it is not. No, it is not an access road.
For National Grid.
I do. No, I
National Grid, because it is 20 feet.
Respectfully, I disagree, Madam Chair. This is a driveway for use for National Grid. It is not an access road to the solar site.
I didn't say that it was an access road. I said it was an access road for National Grid, and because the requirement.
It's not an access road.
Okay. It's a 20-foot driveway, which is not generally a requirement for a driveway. A driveway is usually 18, most 15 feet. It's semantics. We understand what the purpose is, but it's a steep slope. We have concerns about water coming off the site, going down the driveway. I've already expressed the concerns. It's fine. We're doing quite well in our conversation right now, Corey, with Eric. I think that we're moving along productively. This isn't helpful. Right now, we're going to get back to what happens with the timeline. Like with the timeline for, let's say, the construction. It would really be awful for you guys to have the driveway completed and then have the information on the basin performed after.
I definitely know that the driveway is not going to change based upon what's going to be happening with the solar basin. It's just not, right? The fact of the matter is that the basin, even as a detention basin up there, is going to meet standard 2 for peak rates of runoff.
So if it already,
it's possible to put a 4-bay in that basin and have it provide pre-treatment. If a redesign were needed, I think an infiltration basin would be the best, certainly. I do think that there's a level of conservatism built into it based upon, just looking at the soils. I do recognize you're absolutely correct, though, that the soils that are up there, may or may not have, some challenges, but we have to do the test pits. And so what I'm offering is an opportunity for the commission to have some input on this while recognizing, and again, what the act says, right? The department's determined that areas beyond the 100-foot buffer zone to wetland resource areas, right, are not likely to be impacted by any activities. It literally says that, and that's how the jurisdiction of the commissions were established under the act. And I'm trying to provide something here that still gives the commission an opportunity to weigh in and be informed of what's happening up there, to move this along. So
Yeah, I was just concerned about the timing of that.
Could I comment on that?
Yes, please. Thank you, Terry.
So,
I appreciate the idea that you want to do test pits, and rightfully so, you should. But the thing being is if it is indeed till and shallow groundwater, now you have to change your design, and you may not be able to infiltrate, and nothing says up there that you have to infiltrate. So you would have to come up with a different design. But I guess my concern is not only that it be done in a timely manner so that you're able to adjust if you need to, either up there or down below, but also just that, it's, if you get into it already, I guess I'm saying, why wouldn't you just do it right away?
because it
Sooner than
really,
later.
because I'm trying to be respectful about the situation that we're in, right? The town of Warren, with all due respect, cannot dictate that recharge is done for a solar project that's in the adjacent community. Okay, they just cannot do it. There's nothing in the act that
No.
gives the town of Warren,
That's
right?
not what we're
That's
talking
that's
about.
just a statement, right? So the infiltrative aspect of it is honestly not really up for discussion here, with all due respect.
Well, it is.
What I'm-
It is because it affects how you're calculating your runoff coming down onto the site. So it's if you're saying water disappears because it's infiltrating, that's fine.
It's just a matter of meeting peak rates, Mr.
Right,
Reynolds.
exactly. So
We
if
can
it doesn't
easily, we can
infiltrate,
do it with a detention basin. We don't need we're not using the infiltrative portion of it to meet peak rates. We don't need it to meet the peak rates of runoff. We
correct.
just don't. So it's
Correct.
not going to change the road. It's not going to change the swale design. I am required as the professional engineer on that project too, in addition to this one, to meet the standards of the Stormwater Management Handbook. And that was reviewed and approved by that municipality.
Correct.
Okay.
But so
There is more than one
municipality-
way to put a BMP up there to meet the stormwater standards for that project and this project. I am
The only-
100% confident of that.
The only
need to
thing
put
I'm
a-
pointing out, the only thing I'm trying to point out here is you're showing that you're not going to increase the peak rate. Okay. If that design changes, then the calculation you're making for showing that you're not that you're meeting the standard for peak rate also changes.
And I'm saying
why
that
not do
I
that?
would provide that to the commission to satisfy this special condition that I am suggesting gets put into a potential order. I'm trying to give the commission an opportunity to be informed of something that is blatantly outside of their jurisdiction, but I'm trying to be respectful of that.
Well, the runoff is not outside their jurisdiction. The
It
runoff is
actually,
inside.
Mr. Reynolds, you should speak to the DEP Western Region Circuit Rider, okay? Because he's gonna have a very different opinion on that, all right? I have been working
Would it
under the
be-
Wetlands Protection Act for 20+ years of my career that I've been at Beals and Thomas for 25, okay? I'm just,
Okay, we're
this
gonna
is-
just
Would it be helpful for us to provide to the commission the findings and determination from the Brookfield Conservation Commission and their independent peer reviewer?
I don't know, Corey, I really,
No,
that
actually,
is really what we're trying to
no,
do.
you know
What I'm
what?
saying
I
is we're
think-
gonna go out, and if the design changes, we're gonna inform this Conservation Commission of that.
Yes,
And
I-
demonstrate to them that we can still meet these standards. Because I have to still meet the standards, just because it's in a different town, doesn't mean that I don't have to meet the same standards. I'm meeting the same standards with this project as I am with that project. I have to do that as the professional engineer.
no, it's
Either
totally
way.
fine. It's absolutely, you're absolutely right. You have to meet the standard by making the basin bigger, by doing whatever. I appreciate that, and I appreciate.
Language. I don't have any problems with that, Eric. Like, none of that is problematic. My only issue is the timing on this. Is, you know, when does the driveway, get built? Is it before all of that other stuff takes place, or will it be after? You know what I mean? So the timing is I don't want this to,
What I'm trying, I want to make clear to the commission is that any water that would be coming down the hill from that project to this project is going to meet the standards regardless of it. It's not going to affect, I'm assuring you, it's not going to affect this design while still meeting all of these standards. It's just not. I'm trying to provide a special condition here that though would keep the commission informed if there were any changes, that we would be notifying you of that and talking it out in terms of what changed so that you can be confident that it is not changing anything.
I understand. I was just, my question.
about timing, you know, does it? Okay.
It's the water coming out of that BMP up there is going to have to meet the standards that this project before you currently is trying to meet as well. So it's not going to change the design ultimately. It's not going to change this, even if this for some reason were constructed before that project.
Okay. All right.
Would
Having
you?
a special condition though would allow the commission to stay informed of any changes that were made.
Would you,
Kindly write that condition for me?
We would certainly be open to that, at least for your, consideration. You could certainly edit it.
yeah,
Okay.
because that way it will be,
I won't mess it up.
Thank you for taking the time to talk that over. We appreciate it.
we are going to. Oh,
We
see,
already, 1 and 2, we essentially just addressed. Standard 5 and 6, I've got the green light on. Standard 7,
So on this,
yeah,
I think this is resolved. We've been going around and around in wording. I'm going to keep it very simple. Even if this project is considered a new development, we are meeting we're not asking for relief, right? The premise of redevelopment is that you have to meet it to the maximum extent practicable. We're not asking for that. We are meeting these standards as if it is a new development. So whether or not we want to agree or disagree on whether a portion of it is redevelopment, it doesn't matter. The project meets the standards as it's now currently designed. And this, in our opinion, requires no further discussion. Don't call it redevelopment. It doesn't matter. It's not changing anything here, ultimately, from a stormwater management perspective. So that's what our current response is.
do you, I guess I have one question.
about you're taking the house down, right?
Correct.
And are you, are you removing the foundation with the house removal?
I would have to discuss that with the applicant.
Okay, I'm just curious. You know, it's an old enough house, but it's what, 50s, 40s, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
I'm just wondering if you remove the foundation, there will be recharge. If you don't, it's essentially a filled-in swimming pool, and then there's no recharge. So that's, you know, when the conversation is that we're taking the house down, if they're taking the house down and leaving the foundation, and if it's not a mud floor, it's not really, there's no benefit to the removal of that house. I'm arguing, but I'm gonna leave it here, because I don't think that, I think that to the extent practicable, we don't have to. But I'd be interested to know if that foundation is getting removed.
Yeah, it's not a standard concrete poured foundation, Madam Chair. It's a chink filled stone foundation.
Oh, so it's a dirt floor, or did they?
Yeah, it is. Yep. Yeah, it's really not very much intact. So we can I mean, we can work with Eric's team to ensure that it's you know, closed out and decommissioned according to town protocol.
Yeah, you'll have to take a permit out from the building inspector.
Do that.
Yeah, the note on the plan currently for that says contractor, this is just how it was written. The contractor shall demolish, dispose of offsite, backfill, and compact existing building and appurtenant structures, because there's a deck associated with it. So
Yeah,
that was implied that it would all be essentially removed and disposed of offsite.
yeah, I mean, it depends. We've had a couple of,
And sometimes they just fill in. But if it's a stone foundation, it likely doesn't have a concrete floor. It likely is a dirt floor.
Corey, do you want me to adjust the note to clarify that further, to try to address this? About the foundation specifically? I can just reference the foundation in there.
Yeah, let's get a team in there to take a look at it to confirm that understanding is correct. And if that is right, then we can make a note on that and submit that to the commission.
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so, the blue,
It's just for me to take note and to add that to the conditions. So we're all set with that. Can you talk a little bit about this section in pink? Terry?
Oh, sorry.
Design and detail of all significant erosion control measures such as temporary basin and diversion swales need to be either included on approved plans or included in the SWIP. So it's actually Eric.
We did, yes. So we do have, so in addition to adding the sediment forebay that I had depicted, we did make some adjustments to the site preparation and sedimentation control plan that is on sheet C801. So that you will see that. I can show you that either now if you just want a preview of it.
yeah, sure.
Okay. I wasn't sure if I was still sharing or not, but I have that up on the screen.
Yeah, it's not showing.
Okay, here we go. So a couple, and again, we're going to have a stormwater pollution prevention plan as well that has to get submitted. So that's
Eric,
also where there will be.
It didn't come up.
Joyce, I think you have to stop sharing.
Maybe I do. Okay, stop share. Sorry.
Okay.
There.
There we go. So a couple of things. I know it may not seem like a lot, but on this, we have added a few additional notes. We've added, outlined these diversion swales in a couple of locations that would help direct water into the construction period sedimentation basins. We have the sizing criteria on here based upon the tributary area. We've tried to further outline, the construction of these temporary basins as well compared to the previous version that the commission had seen. So this will be on the next set of plans this week that the commission will receive, and Mr. Reynolds can review.
You want to, do you have a temporary outlet control or any sort of grading? Are you using the proposed base? Anything like that? How are you forming those?
Well, that's where, typically the outlet control structures and things, don't necessarily get put in on the construction period BMPs.
You
Certainly
have a
not
riser
how this
pipe
is.
or anything like that, or they just overflow?
If we want to, typically what we would do, right, is that, but there was, I believe earlier, I don't know if I was at that particular hearing, but most commonly, what happens in many cases, if there is going to be a permanent basin, is that the temporary sedimentation basin, if it occupies a portion or all of that footprint, it's at a higher elevation, so it's not quite as deep. It's sized to meet the NIPB's requirements, but then it allows that basin to be over excavated to completely remove any sedimentation as well as any impacted soil to get down to the proposed grade. Now here, this isn't an infiltration basin. We've done that even where we do have infiltration proposed. So, it would be better to have basin 1 be more like it is, in the permanent scenario, with an actual outlet. But in terms of meeting, the NIPD's requirements,
So one
the
of the
sizing
things,
criteria here does meet that.
Do you have a requirement, something about, once it reaches 3/4 of the way full or something like that, then it's to be pumped out and the material, maybe through flock logs or something like that to eliminate the fines, which is what is something that we have seen quite frequently for construction basins, is that it just needs to be manually pumped to, if it's going to be raining out, heavy rains and it's gonna fill up, you just need to pump it out on flock logs, get rid of the material.
And that's, again, it's in here, and we're getting to it in the next comment, actually, is that SWIP being a requirement for the commission's review as well. That's typically where we would get into that level. I mean, it's hundreds of pages.
yeah, I know.
Typically, right? So that's where a lot of that criteria is typically spelled out in a bit more detail. I do understand trying to get as much of that on here as possible, but
So one of the
I'll-
things
yeah.
that I,
Because it is, it's a document, somebody's gotta read it. But oftentimes, from our experience, and I can tell you that I only have 12 and you probably have hundreds. But being on site, what I've seen is that if it's not on the plan in a picture form, or like in a broad note, it gets ignored because there's a bunch of people, this is like a small project. I totally get that. But oftentimes, quick, fast, visual form, and then this is what needs to happen, because otherwise, if it's impractical, it's not gonna happen, which I understand pumps are often impractical. Anyway, I guess I'm voting to have either a note or some kind of something on the plan, instead of buried in the middle of a 700-page SWIP.
Yeah, we can certainly, try to, continue to add to the notation, that we have on here. We did add, coming from, I know the first hearing that I was at, the wetland impact and avoidance sequencing was a big thing that wasn't on, our initial set of plans. So we've continued to work on all the notation on here. And, we'll take another look at it this week, commissioners, before we submit it to for your review.
Okay, thank you.
Eric, would it make sense for that to be an item as a condition?
Well, I think it will be, Corey, really, and it is covered under the next comment for we're getting to, but I think there's just a few additional notes we can put on here, I think, to address the commission's concerns.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna have you stop sharing,
So,
and I'm going to go back to our,
Okay, then we got that measure temporary erosion control measures, we have acknowledged, addressed. Oh, I'm just curious, do you have on your O&M, if there happens to be sediment built up in the riprap swale over time, are there processes in place for sediment removal in riprap swale, or does it all need to be removed?
So we have what we refer to it as the site owner's manual, and this is we had a version of this dated March 6th that was submitted to the commission, and there's a section 4.2.1 that deals with that. In the interim, what we're seeing today's technology is vac trucks. They're not necessarily always just used to remove sediment from catch basins and water quality units. They are also used. We've seen them used to remove sediment from the bottom of ornamental ponds and things of that nature. So they could certainly be used to remove accumulated sediment from a swale.
I'm sorry, I just got this document.
What do they use to remove it? Like a vacuum?
Yeah, so the inspection and maintenance schedule for the riprap swale, indicates that it should be inspected during the first 3 months after installation to ensure that there's no erosion of the side slopes, and that eroded areas shall be repaired. Thereafter, swales shall be inspected once per year. During the inspection, they shall be checked for slope integrity, stability, erosion, and sedimentation. Corrective measures shall be taken immediately as warranted by the inspection. Sediment and debris shall be removed manually at least once per year. So, the added context there is that the most practical way to do it is to use a vac truck, because it can be manually removed and sucked up the hose. There's like a half an acre ornamental pond that we had designed for a residence, and that's what they've done to remove sediment out there that just had accumulated over time. So it actually works pretty well to remove sediment over pretty large areas, in my experience.
Yeah, I was just curious on how that was actually done, because
Removing it by hand is almost an impossible task with riprap in the way. But if
Yes.
there's like a vacuum truck, or if there's like, I was just, you know, it's gotta be
Yeah,
done
I think
somehow.
it wouldn't likely pull off the riprap. You know what I mean? It's strong, but it's not that strong. So I think the manual removal, it would be manually, pulled up. It's the hose is maybe a 4-inch diameter from what I've seen. That's, manually articulated, to, collect the sediment.
Okay, that's just more of a curiosity than anything else. All right. We've gotten through the list.
We have,
So,
The next steps, do we have any other questions, conversations that need to be had, Eric or Terry? Is there anything else we should address? No,
Well, it
okay.
sounds good. Beals and Thomas are
Working on upgrading the plans and so on, and I think, sounds like you're getting there. Hopefully by the next round you should be all set.
so we have our next,
Meeting, in, on the
It's
9th,
April,
I
yeah.
think, right?
April 9th. April 9th.
So let's aim for April 9th. Is that amenable to you, time-wise?
yes, certainly. And we will, endeavor to have our revised documentation and responses to the commission, by March 21st, this Friday.
oh,
And that
fantastic.
provides,
A
you
little
know,
wiggle room for us.
yeah, over 2 weeks. I do want to acknowledge, because we do a lot of peer reviews for municipalities ourselves as a firm. I do want to acknowledge Mr. Reynolds' responsiveness in reviewing our documentation. To date, he has been very responsive in that capacity. We have dealt with a number of other peer reviewers that take significantly longer to review, documentation. So I did want to just acknowledge that. So in this case, though, I do think Mr. Reynolds will have more time to review, and if there is anything that needs to be worked out, that there will be sufficient time to do that before we reconvene with the commission on the 9th, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be ready to go by then.
Hopefully we'll be ready to go.
We're all looking forward to that. Okay, I think that's it.
Quick question, sorry.
Madam Chair, would it make sense for us to distribute a draft of an order of conditions for you to review? And
No, I mean,
Certainly, if you are interested in, I just have that one item I asked Eric to add, but we have standard conditions that we use here for the commission. If you have a special request, you can certainly submit it. I can't promise that we'll honor it.
No,
that's okay. Are those available off of the town's website?
no, and you know what I can do is I can send you the list of our standard conditions. We don't use all of them, we just,
In a meeting when we're writing our conditions. And then sometimes we add some, but I'm happy to email you, Corey.
yeah, that'd be great, yeah.
The list of conditions that we generally have. Some of them are duplicate to what DEP has on the permit, but are a little more expansive. And obviously, we're going to be removing the ones, about using explosives and, right, there's a whole bunch that are going to be relevant, but you can see the whole list.
Yeah, hopefully,
We're not using explosives on this, Eric.
okay, can I,
To continue the hearing.
Make a motion to continue the hearing until April 9th.
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye, Philip Woodford.
Hi, Karen Dusting.
Aye, Joyce Ihacker. Okay, so we will see all or some of you anyway on the 9th, and I look forward to the documentation, Eric, at the end of the week, and then we'll be in touch, Terry.
Excellent.
Very good. Thank you all for your time this evening. Again, we appreciate it very much.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Bill. Bye-bye.
Very handy having this available. I know it was in the documentation, but then I'd have to scroll.
You probably could have shared a screen anyway and just showed you anyway, but yeah, nope, not a problem.
Scroll, do you want that back? It's gotta be in,
It is, it's in this one.
it isn't included in the documentation, I
Yeah,
just,
we've got it.
I don't need it back if you wanna keep it, but.
really, take it back. You can have it,
We don't
really.
need more paperwork.
Did you sign in?
I did, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you again so much for having this meeting tonight.
yeah, no
It sounded like it
problem.
was a really productive conversation.
It was a good meeting, absolutely.
Yeah, alright, well, have a nice night.
Yes.
And, looking forward to April 9th.
Sounds like a plan. Good
Okay,
night.
we'll see you
Take
then.
care.
We didn't have anything else on the agenda, so
No, just this.
we're all set.
Is that NOI going forward? That's all I need to know. The one that I have to put in the paper.
Oh, yes, you should put that in the paper.
All right, I'll do that tomorrow.
You should put that in the paper for,
April 9th.
Crouch Road.
Yeah,
Yes, yes.
so it needs to
They,
run.
we can open, we don't have, well, yeah, we may not have a file number by then, and it may need a 401 water quality.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't quite sure with
But
all
I think
going
that
on.
we should put it in the paper and open the hearing anyway, because in case, they've already gotten their paperwork in, and we need to open the hearing, whether or not we have a file number in 21 days of receiving it, so,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. That, I was just questioning because there was so much.
Yeah, there was a
Coming
lot of
through and
back
it's
and
like-
forth with that. I didn't realize that it would need a water quality because it was an intermittent stream, but apparently, I learned something all
Are
the
you
time.
learning?
And Karen suggests we run it 2 weeks? Because we've only been running them one, the ad.
We don't have to. Conservation, the DEP requirements is only,
One,
one notice 2 weeks ahead of time.
okay, there you
All right,
have it. That's
okay.
different than us, so that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very specific.
2 weeks before meeting.
Okay, I will have a motion.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
I, Karen Dusty.
Hi, Philip Woodford.
Aye, Joyce Ahacker.
April 9th, April 2nd.
Open